This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this holiday edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. If you're wondering why I got an extra pep in my step, the Lions are winning football games, and it's finally fun to break down a winning football team with my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. The Lions are winners of 6 of 7 games. Now, while it hurt that the Lebanese defensive coach couldn't get his guys to play defense, touche. Look, it is just hard. And I thought that the best comment maybe this year that I heard came from a guy that got fired. Aubrey Pleasant is now an offensive assistant with the Green Bay Packers, and he had said a while back that, you know what, I probably would be a head coach if I just coached offense. That's how hard it is to master coaching defense. So give credit to those that try it, but friends don't let friends play cornerback. Friends don't let friends coach defense, because you see the wizardry that can be produced when a quality top-notch coordinator like Ben Johnson dials up what he did. It was genuinely exciting. For me, watching that game, I got kind of the feeling like, similarly as I was reporting on the game, it felt like how it did when the Lions lost to the Vikings, where they made mistakes. Dan Campbell makes a critical error in judgment, and you just had a feeling like, okay, the Lions have let the Jets hang around. And then Zach Wilson launches a bomb late. But Saleh, for some reason, I'm very shocked, he now is in the club of those that doesn't understand the mastery of clock management. He's using timeouts like, I got him, not going to use them. And you're like, okay, the clock's ticking. So while disappointing on the coaching front, the Lions, cuz this is probably the most fun 7-week stretch that you can have. Winners of 6 of their last 7 games, and the loss to the Bills, people were like, hey, it's kind of a game in which you played well. You hung around with one of the best teams, so it's just a blip on the radar. This has been fun, and it is really surprising and drastic to see from where they were to where they're at now. The Lions, as we record this, are 7-7 with a great chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, look, man, they are what you would say is a good football team. That was a good football win. That is a game where you have to go on the road. You've got to go to a really nasty place. You got to go to MetLife Stadium. You got to play the Jets. It's a tough crowd. You're going up against a pretty good defense. I know stats are what stats are, but that's a good defense. We all agree that's a very good defense. That game was made for you to lose. You're going, again, on the road, in the cold. It was frigid. Your quarterback doesn't necessarily play well on the road or in the cold, and yet you're still able to eke out a win. That is all of the makings of a good football team. Detroit, you now have a good football team. Sit back, embrace it, love this, live in the moment. You have a good this is so nuts, right? You go back, 6-7 weeks ago? You had a team that was 1-6, and we were calling for Dan Campbell's job. We were calling for changes to be made. They basically steadied the ship, and they kept consistent, and this team is now 7-7, and I told you, they're going to win out. They're going to win out, and they're going to make the playoffs. This team is playoff bound. They are playing playoff football. Right now, do you realize nobody in the NFL wants to play this team? Nobody wants to play these guys. Why? Because they hit you in the face. They take the ball away. They put points up. They eke out wins. They're able to put a ton of points on you, and they're able to get down and dirty and gritty with you and win in the trenches and win by the narrowest of margins like they did in this game. This is a good football team. This is something that we haven't been able to say in a very long, long time. I can remember back when we had teams that would make it to the playoffs. When Matt Stafford was quarterback, there was always like a fatal flaw with that team. There was always something that was just a little bit off, and somebody else had to compensate or kind of cover it up a little bit. You had to put a little bit of lipstick on the pig. I think this team is what it is. And it's a good football team. It's an offense that can score points. It's a defense that's not going to necessarily knock your socks off, but it's going to hit you hard and it's going to take the ball away. You've got a special teams unit that has made special plays all year long. Whether it's going for it on 4th and forever and picking up a first down, whether it's Khalif Raymond running back a punt return for a touchdown and you needed that touchdown, whether it's pinning guys back or whether it's your punter who could sub as your backup quarterback because he's got a hell of an arm. You've got a very special teams unit. On top of that, you work in a Ben Johnson offense that is, dude, I can't say enough glowing things about it. Like, it's unreal what this guy has been able to do. And it's just subtle little things. It's like it's scheming things and it's setting things up. There'll be a play that he'll run 2 and 3 times, and then he'll show you the same formation, and he'll run a similar play out of it, but the play is completely different by the time you get to the end of the route tree. It's unreal how he does it, and it always leaves a guy wide open, similar to what happened with Brock Wright to score the touchdown to put the Lions up. Like, it's absolutely bananas the way the offensive coordinator processes the game and then installs the game plan, and then the team goes out and executes it. It's absolutely fantastic. And the defense, I mean, you've got 2 DNs right now that are leading the race for defensive ends for sacks on the year. That's nuts, man. Like, we were hoping Aiden Hutchinson would be good, but you end up rolling in another guy who's just as good as him? Okay, cool. We'll take that. On top of that, you've got a defense that is ball hawking and is ready to strip the ball away from you and force you to turn it over. We'll take it all day long. You have a good football team. That is my ultimate reaction to what I seen on Sunday. You have a very good football team that is bound for the playoffs. Absolutely pumped up. Watching that game, there was one thing that did scare me, and it was when Brock Wright scored. When Brock Wright scored that touchdown, and look, it was a 4th and 1, beautiful play call, beautiful design. Brock Wright caught the ball, and then you see the big man start rumbling and tumbling 51 yards for the score. I was looking at the clock when he was running into the end zone, and I was like, oh, man, they're going to leave too much time on the clock. They're going to leave way too much time on the clock. And then I had to talk myself out of it. I was like, no, you take the points where you can get the points. You'll figure the rest out. Take the points now. Go for it. Did you have any concerns when Brock Wright was screaming? I say screaming. He looked like he was on a Vespa. When he was on his Vespa to the end zone to score that touchdown to put the Lions up 19-17?
That was crazy. And I do want to ask if I'm being a little pessimistic because I'm already jumping ahead. Should the Lions potentially make the playoffs? There are some Jim Caldwell.
They're making the playoffs. I've been telling you for weeks now.
Okay.
They're making.
If they make the playoffs,
get on my train. Let's go.
There are some things to be critical about that might cost you at the highest level of football. And we'll talk about Ben Johnson and some of the calls he made in the red zone that are a little bit alarming. But at that point in the game, yes, I was concerned because there was time left. But here's the mitigating factors that give you a little bit of hope. Zach Wilson has the propensity to make boneheaded throws. I mean, he threw some lob-like tosses to a defense that has been opportunistic. And yeah, you're a second-year player, but you've now been benched. You kind of have to be aware that you can't throw the football like that to the Lions. And his interception was, if you go and look at the highlights, was among the worst passes you are going to see this season. Horrible timing, and it gave the Lions some momentum. Now with Zach Wilson, it does kind of harken back to how much doubt do you have in the Lions. I thought that they would pressure Wilson, and of course, that 50-yard bomb was crazy, but it's really wild to see that if Saleh handles the clock correctly, calls a timeout, he didn't use his first of 3 timeouts that you earn when every half until there was 20 seconds left.
Bro, he was saving them like they were rollover minutes. Come on.
It's crazy. I don't understand why.
2010 call. They want their phone plan back. Let's go.
Yeah, step it up. It's high level. These are decisions that decidedly it should have been a tie game because you would think that with another 40 seconds, you would give your kicker a much better situation than a 58-yarder. I think they would have tied the game. So it's a gift. So I'll take it. I was nervous. Yeah, the defense, I was nervous as well. I thought the defensive line would handle business in the linebackers, but what was the Achilles heel against the Jets? The defensive backs. They didn't bring their A game in any shape, in any way, shape, or form, and now you got to pay attention. I think Deshaun Elliott might be hitting the injured list. We'll see based on Monday's test results. He came away with a shoulder situation after that game, so you're going to be thinner in the secondary. But man,
look,
when that field goal missed, it was wild, and you realize that the Lions, and good teams get lucky, the Lions were the beneficiary of a young coach that didn't master an important part of the game.
And look, this is what I'll say, because you brought up the secondary. Yeah, maybe the secondary didn't play their best game, okay? But that secondary did force turnover. Jerry Jacobs did pick up the ball. And honestly, if he had to cut back towards the middle, he might have scored a touchdown. Instead, he goes out of bounds. Yeah. So the defense had a big stop, and they forced a turnover when you needed it. On top of that, there are going to be games where your secondary isn't going to play its best. You have to lean on another unit sometimes. You have to figure out a different way to get it done. This team did that. This team was able to produce 2 sacks at the end of the game and help set up a 58-yard field goal. 58 yards is absolutely bananas. On top of that, doing it in MetLife Stadium is absolutely crazy. So you almost sealed the game right there. Like, the win percentage after the second sack basically went up to like 97%. Unless you've got Justin Tucker kicking the field goal, I'm feeling pretty confident about it. So you're figuring out and you're manufacturing different ways to win football games. There are going to be games where your offense is going to put up 40 points. There's going to be games where your offense is only going to struggle to put up 13, like this game, right? And you have to lean on your special teams unit to help you along and get a touchdown here or there, or make a big play here or there. What I'm telling you is you've got a team. And that's what it is. It is a team. Before, with the Detroit Lions, you would have a good offense. You'd have a crap defense. You would have a really strong defense, and you would have an offense that would turn the ball over at a regular clip. You're not seeing these things. Or you would have a special teams unit that couldn't convert on simple things like punting the ball or even field goals from 15 yards out. What you've got here is you've got a collection of guys. It almost feels, honestly, it almost feels like the land of misfit toys, right? You've got a quarterback that nobody wanted. You got a defensive end that was taken in the draft that was highly questioned. Me and you questioned whether or not they should take him. You had a tight end here that you traded away that everybody says is the second coming of Travis Kelce or Kittle, and you're like, no, we're good. We don't need him. Instead, we got Brock Wright. Who the hell's Brock Wright? Brock Wright's the guy who just won you a football game. That's who Brock Wright is. You've got guys on this team that you just kind of like scratch your head. You're like, how the hell did you make it to this team? Look at Khalif Raymond. Khalif Raymond's on what? This is his 6th team? Like, he's bounced around the league, and that guy put up a massive touchdown for you when you needed it. So I think what you've got is you've got a team that has bought into the culture that this coaching staff has laid down, and it's producing wins on the field, and that's a great feeling, man. It is so much fun to watch these guys. That game was so much fun to watch. I was half liquored up because I go bowling on Sunday mornings. I'm in a bowling league, and I ended up going to the bar after. I drove home at halftime, sat down at home, and I ended up killing a half a bottle of gin just watching that game. It was absolutely fantastic. I was boozed out of my mind, and I was pumped watching this game. It was absolutely fantastic watching this team. Now, yeah, there are concerns. There are a ton of concerns, right? I mean, I mentioned the quarterback a little bit ago, but you mentioned the offensive play calling by the offensive coordinator, who we've been heaping nothing but praise on, and we're all afraid that he might end up leaving and going and taking a head coaching job somewhere. What were some of the things that really made you nervous about what Ben Johnson was doing in this game?
Yeah, first concern was the offensive drive there early in the game. You're in the red zone against a solid Jets team. It felt like you needed to be a little bit more creative than 4 straight runs. And that fourth down situation,
I agree with you 100%.
Fourth down situation was really concerning. A long developing run against a defense that is really aggressive and has the potential to really wreak havoc and maybe even cause a turnover, I thought was really not the best way to start the game. I thought, listen, and yeah, maybe analytically I would be called super safe, Trojan safe, whatever critics would say. I take points. No matter what, you begin the game, 3rd down. I know it's close. I know it did set up. You were rewarded by Khalif Raymond afterwards, but your defense playing well. And I think it goes to show you that you do, play to what your opponents are doing. And I think that they even said, what's Zach Wilson really going to do? But for me, I assume that, hey, even though Zach Wilson's not playing good, give me the 3-0 lead and let's handle business. And then Dan Campbell, which is so weird, said that he will never, ever in his life forget the costly mistake that he made against the Vikings by choosing to kick the field goal. Well, if you felt that strongly about what happened in Minnesota, you go and make the same exact mistake, you got to kind of know what the range of your kicker is. You got to know that, okay, no matter what, 9 times out of 10, he's going to make it from this spot. And I think knowing your opponent would indicate to me that Zach Wilson being pinned down to the 5-yard line, hopefully at worst the 20, 25, would give you a much better chance of having success than giving the Jets an opportunity, which they took advantage of when he got the ball to C.J. Uzomah, the tight end who scored a couple touchdowns. Those kind of things against a bad Jets team playing not the best without 2 players, I would argue that with Mike White and Keenan Williams, that's a whole different game with a lot more aggression being shown by Robert Saleh. I just am disappointed that Saleh, who I think is a good coach, really, I think, hurt his team by just being so conservative. And I think most Jets fans felt like Garrett Wilson with their hands just flopping down, wondering what the hell's going on with this Jets team. And you take the wins where you can get them. But if you look at projecting in the future, should you win the next 3 games, some of those critical mistakes you're not going to bounce back from. It's just the law of averages. So, and I know it's difficult to play a perfect game. No team can do it. But some of those mistakes could come back to haunt the Lions, and they got to tighten it up. Those kind of red zone issues, now they've been executing well in the red zone as of late. They are a team with the highest percentage in the red zone in the last 6-7 weeks. So they're performing at a high level. But in a critical moment, some of the mistakes that could have piled up against the New York Jets could have been costly. And you still got 3 more wins you got to get. So you got to clean up all across the board, some things in the defense, some things offensively, and some of the decision-making. But boy, talk about the Jets, man. They just did some things that the Lions used to do. It was really a mirror image of what the bad Lions used to look like was the New York Jets playing. It was nice to see another team struggle and shooting themselves in the foot a lot more than the Lions.
See, I'll play devil's advocate with you. I think Dan Campbell kind of went into this game knowing what that personnel was that he was going up against with the Jets. I think he knew, look, it's Zach Wilson. He reads the headlines. Team's not really in favor of Zach Wilson. You got players on the Jets wearing Mike White T-shirts in support of Mike White. And look, I'm a huge Mike White fan.
Were they? They're wearing Mike White shirts? Oh, my God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. During the week of practice, they're wearing Mike White T-shirts. That locker room has totally turned on Zach Wilson. So I get it, right? I get that nobody likes them, right? This is Dan Campbell thinking this. I get that nobody likes that quarterback. I'm aware of the personnel I'm going up against. They're missing Quinnen Williams, one of their best defensive linemen. I know what I've got going on. I think he's willing to roll the dice a little bit more because he's aware of what the personnel is. And look, I get it. That's not gonna help you win a playoff game when you're taking on a team like, say, the Vikings, say the Cowboys, say the 49ers, whomever, right? That type of play style isn't going to help you. But you know what? It worked today, and it wasn't pretty. And all the wins aren't going to be pretty. They're not all going to be a 40-14 or a 34-23 win. They're not going to be like that. Sometimes they're going to be ugly. And you take that win and you roll out. Remember, this game was set up for you to lose. You should lose this game just because of where it's at on your schedule, what is basically pending for both teams. The Jets are fighting for a playoff spot just like you're trying to get into the playoffs. It was set up for you to lose. You ended up going and taking care of business. And look, I agree with you 100%. Some of Ben Johnson's play calling at the goal line, running it 4 straight times, made no sense to me. I don't know why you do that when you've got a prolific wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown who runs some of the best short routes. Or you can do an end around with him where he can run and capture the edge. Literally, it was less than a yard. It was a 1.5 feet that you basically had to fall into the end zone. Maybe do a QB sneak. Maybe get Jamal Williams behind Jared Goff and give him that extra little push so he can fall into the end zone. Figure something else out. You've got to be able to execute when you get that close. I don't necessarily have a problem with you going for it on basically 4th and a foot and a half, because you're basically pinning them deep. You're going to have to go 99 yards and 1.5 feet to score a touchdown. Good luck. I'll take my chances, especially if it's Zach Wilson as the quarterback with a team that hates his guts. I'm willing to roll with that. I'm willing to give that a shot. So, yeah, I didn't like the 4 runs back to back to back to back, but at the same time, I had no problem with Dan Campbell going for it on 4th and 1 because I felt like they could have and they should have got it. You needed to do something a little bit different. You needed a different play design. You needed a different play call, and you just didn't get it. And I think one of the bigger things coming out of this is the play of Jared Goff. And going through all the reports and reading everything that everybody's putting out there, everybody's saying like, hey, Jared Goff played a pretty good game because he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't screw it up. That being said, I was really underwhelmed by Jared Goff's performance. Jared Goff struggles on the road, and Jared Goff struggles in the cold, which, again, is why I feel like you should take this win, be happy, keep it moving. Your quarterback doesn't do well in these situations, and he did a good enough job managing this game to get you a victory, actually through the game-winning touchdown pass. We'll take it, and we'll move on. But if you're looking towards the playoffs, like I am in the playoff-bound mindset, right? We are going to the playoffs, and we're going to make noise. I'm hoping that this team gets the 7 seed, and I'm hoping they draw the Vikings because I want to house the Vikings one more time. The Vikings are such a crumb-brum, fraudulent team. I can't wait to beat their ass in the playoffs. So I'm of the playoff mindset. That being said, Jared Goff does not do great on the road, and if you're going to go into the playoffs and you're going to be a 7 seed, you're going to be on the road. Do you have any concerns with Goff? 1, going on the road. 2, going on the road and playing in the cold.
Yeah, here's the thing. First and foremost, you have to credit Jared Goff for part of the reason why this football team has won 6 of 7 games.
Absolutely.
Hasn't turned the football over like he did earlier in the year. You got to remember, part of the reason why the Lions are in the situation that they're in, having to win a plethora of games to get into the postseason, is because Goff and that offense turned the ball over for points. Now he's cleaned up his act. Now he is taking what the defense is giving him and taking calculated shots. So for me, obviously, like Ben Johnson had told the media, I like aggressive plays. I like one-score touchdown drives and big plays. So when Goff has the opportunity to launch it deep, I don't want to see Jameson Williams slowing down. And that's what we saw against the Jets. But bottom line, even I'm surprised by how fast Jameson Williams is. I don't even think most quarterbacks, when they see a player of that caliber, can adjust that fast to be able to launch it that deep. And you got to remember, he's pressured, and Goff and Jameson Williams don't have the necessary time and reps together to connect at that level just yet. But boy, I don't want to see it. I would rather err on the side of overthrowing it as far as possible, throw it out of the end zone, as opposed to seeing now Jameson Williams twice having to slow down to pick up a reception from Jared Goff. But bottom line, those are things that consistency over time, I think you're going to hopefully start to see that connection be established. But you got to credit Goff for what he's been able to do in regards to spreading the football around, keeping it where it needs to be, and not causing the issues that Zach Wilson caused his football team. Now, look, how many games are you going to have in those kind of conditions? Not many. If you play Minnesota, the weather will be great. If you play the 49ers, the weather will have an opportunity to be very solid. So for me, I'm of the opinion that Goff right now is the least of the problems. I think you got to look at the defense and the secondary as being the biggest issue that could prevent the Lions from meeting their goals.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess this is the thing. I think Jared Goff this season has done a good enough job, basically with what he has to work with. Right, you're never going to make the case that Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback, right? You've got a team, you got a guy like Jameson Williams who's an absolute speedster, and I think we're kind of seeing some of the flaws with Jared Goff's game here. He just can't hit that deep ball with Jameson Williams, who gets so wide open. I think that is frustrating. All that being said, he does a good enough job with managing the game, and in certain cases, that's what you need. That's what you needed this week. I do have a major concern with Goff when we get into the playoffs, right? I think when you get to Minnesota, I'm not necessarily worried about it. I think you can handle Minnesota. I think if they draw Minnesota in the playoffs, I think they're going to be okay. And the reason I believe that is because I think Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins are basically on par with each other. Kirk Cousins in big-time spots always plays his smallest football. Jared Goff can manage the game, and as long as he doesn't try to do too much, you'll be okay. On top of that, I feel like Detroit's got Minnesota's number all day, every day. It's when you go on the road and you start playing other teams, better teams, that I get a little bit nervous and that I get a little bit worrisome. So as of right now, I think Jared Goff is good enough to help this Lions team get a win in the playoffs and kind of keep it moving. And look, we are now going into the stretch run, all right? We've got 3 games left on the season. Can I get you wooed over to my side? Can I get you wooed over and into the playoff mindset? Can you start trumpeting this team and say that they're going to make the playoffs, that they're going to get in there, that they'll at least secure the 7th seed? And look, I believe they're walking out of this upcoming weekend, with the 7th seed in hand, and I think they'll hold on to it. And maybe, depending on how things kind of fall, this team might bubble up to a 6th seed, but I for damn sure know that this team will be at least a 7th seed. Are you coming over to my side of the force? Are you coming over to the dark side, and you're going to say that the Lions are playoff bound? I mean, let's look at this, right? You're taking on Carolina this weekend, all right? Carolina coming off of Carolina has an outside shot at the NFC South, so they're still fighting for their playoff lives. So this is a game that they have to win this week, all right? But they still have to go through the Bucs, who are in possession of the NFC South, and they also have to go through the Saints. On top of that, you got the Giants. They just beat Washington. They still have to face the Vikings, the Colts, and the Eagles. And I think the Giants will probably lose to the Vikings. I'm not really sold on the Vikings. I think that's maybe a coin flip, but I'll take the Vikings in that one. I think you beat the Colts. And the Eagles, depending on how many guys they rest, I think the Eagles just by nature are a better team than the Giants. So I'll go with the Eagles with that one. So I think the Giants lose 2 of their next 3. You look at Washington, they just lost to the Giants. There was a little bit of home cooking, I think, in that game if you watch Sunday Night Football. But they have to play to the 49ers. I think that's a loss. Their last game of the season, they're going to play against the Cowboys. That'll probably be a loss because the Cowboys will be playing for playoff positioning. And I think that the Browns, who are still playing for playoff positioning, I think that might be a loss as well because the Browns are still in contention. Look at Seattle. They've dropped their last 2. They're playing the Chiefs this week, so I'm going to chalk that up as an L. And then they got to take on the Jets, who are still fighting for that playoff spot, and they might lose that game before they take on the Rams. I think the Lions are in a prime spot to be where they're at right now, and I know they're making the playoffs. Are you coming over to my side yet? Are you coming over? Are you willing to walk on the dark path and say that the Lions are going to the playoffs? We're going to cover ourselves with Honolulu blue butter, and we're going to drink all the Kool-Aid, and we're going to eat all the cornbread. Are you willing to come over yet? Still, 3 weeks out. Can I get you to come over early, or are you going to sit there and you're going to hedge your bets, and basically when week 18 rolls around, you're like, okay, cool, they're playoff bound. I'm on your side now. Is that what you're going to do?
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for and present what's the most disappointment that the Lions can give you, which is win-win. And then it's either going to be get to the playoffs and lay a dud against the 49ers.
They're going to take on Green Bay, and they're going to blow that game.
They're going to be up 14 against Green Bay. Jordan Love just all of a sudden gets a fluky call.
It's a Matt Flynn moment.
An absolutely bogus call on Okudah where he just waves his hand at somebody, gets a call. They get the touchdown late. Then Jared Goff drops the football in the cold, and it gets picked up by one of the defenders. We get to overtime, and boom. You need the win. Basically, the biggest, scariest scenario that I don't want to see happen is the Lions needing a must-win. Basically, remember, I'm a guy that with my own eyes sat in the club level with Kenny, and we watched Ettinger kick that ball, and it was like slow motion. And remember, I was traumatized, and the words that were used by some of the fans in that long walk were horrible in 2000. It was like, fuck the Lions. They will always fuck us. They will always hurt us. They will always make us feel like this forever.
It's a new Lions regime. Come on, man.
But that potential, bro, we've seen this before. Remember? Yeah, the Lions had a great offense and went to Seattle and scored no points. You had 2014 where you had a Super Bowl team. Remember, guys, the Lions are 7-7. We lived through Jim Caldwell. We had 9-7 isn't good enough. So we've seen good football before. Don't act like this is a team coming off of a no-win situation.
That's why it's a 10-win season. 9-7 ain't good enough, baby.
I called for 8 wins this year, so I'm happy. That's why 1-6 caused so much fury, is that was not a 1-6 team. So to put it in context, what's the most hurt that can be caused Lions fans? And that's getting fucked in Green Bay or in the playoffs. But no, I think the Lions are going to give themselves the best opportunity. Whatever happens is gravy. We'll react to it. But this football team controls their destiny. And the blessing, cuz, is the Lions can execute this situation. They can win a playoff game. It's going to be now up to them. It's going to be up to the coaching, up to the talent. When you look at the Lions collectively, we'd always say, man, that defense is horrible. Now they got 3 weapons potentially that can get sacks. You've taken care of that problem. You got young linebackers that can get to where they need to be. The secondary is getting a little bit better week after week now. It's just a tough league to play that position. So what I'm happy with at this point in time is the pieces are in place. Now it's up to the team to go and execute. And whatever happens, put the chips down and let's see what happens. You have a quarterback that's been there before. You have veterans in the running game that have played in big games in Jamal Williams and Justin Jackson. You have an offensive line that has met everybody's expectation. You have the pieces this year to make it happen. So let's go. Let's see what you can do. Let's put your nuts on the table. And cuz, when have you ever said, okay, we need Seattle to lose, they lose. We need the Giants to lose or the Commanders to lose this week, they lose. The stars, for some reason, are aligned. Maybe it's a situation in which you're creating your own luck. For whatever reason, the stars and the universe are aligning that this Lions team can make a run. Remember, we all saw Wayne Fontes win games before. The Lions made the postseason every other year in the 90s. So there's a lot of hurdles still to climb to get everybody to chill out and to not remember all the shit that's been seared into our brains. So for me, I am coming to terms that this is a growing young football team with the capability of winning playoff games. This is nice. But now I always look to, okay, because I watched the Lions and I watch high-end football. So my brain already goes to, okay, now it's 4th and 2 in the playoffs. Does Goff make that throw? Does Brock Wright catch it then? Do the Lions have the situation where they can overcome some of the mistakes that they make in the postseason? So we'll see what happens. But remember, keep that in the back of your mind. Dan Campbell's yet to master clock management, and he still doesn't have a firm grasp of knowing what his kicker can accomplish or not accomplish. And the one aspect in a league where if you go up against the 49ers, when it's time and J-Mo is a yard or two free, Goff must hit him. He has to hit him. Because missed points, missed opportunities get magnified in the playoffs. So they're there. Now it's kind of like this. It's basically now you've been in the classroom all year. You've gotten B's on all your tests, but you need that A- to get to be in the top end of your class. Now when that final comes and you need to beat the ass of the shitty Green Bay Packers on the road in a cold environment, you got to go do it. You can't forget your pencil. You can't show up to the class late. You just can't. You got to show up on time, ready for the test. It's timed. You got to handle business. Let's see what happens, because it's still some things that have crept up that signify to me they just need, if they just had 3 more impactful players on this team, boy, it could be something special this year. But, man, I'm along for the ride because I believe that this is a good football team, like you said. I just need some of those nuts tightened so they can win more games.
What do you think happens this weekend? They're playing the Carolina Panthers.
They're
going to be in Carolina.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm looking at Carolina's roster right now, and I'm surprised that some of these guys are still playing football. Did you know that Chenault is still playing football? Laviska Chenault is still in the league. I didn't realize he was still in the league. That's a wide receiver for Carolina. That's a dude who's trying to get the job done. I mean, this Carolina team, you want to talk about land of misfit toys, right? I was just making the comparison with the Lions. This is legitimately the land of misfit toys. You've got Sam Darnold, you got Deontay Foreman, you've got Chuba Hubbard. These guys are just they're I don't want to say they're borderline NFL players because they are NFL players, but these are second string guys, and these are your starters. DJ Moore's still getting it done. DJ Moore is probably the best guy they have on offense. And then, like I said, Chenault's still in the league. I had no idea. Ian Thomas is still in the league. Had no clue. Like, that's their offense. Defensively, I think they're pretty good defensively, especially up front. Brian Burns, very good. Derek Barnes, very good. Gross Matos is very good. Shaq Thompson's very good. So, I mean, I think they've got some guys, some ballers on defense, but offensively is where I think this team struggles. And look, Detroit's got to go on the road. We've already established it's hard to do in the NFL. It's hard to win this many games back to back to back to back to back like they're doing right now. At some point, there'll probably be a hiccup. Will this game be the hiccup? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they get the job done. I think they go to Carolina. I think they end up winning. I think the offense shows a much better representation of itself, much better than it did this past week against the Jets. I think the offense helps carry this team, and I think the defense scores a touchdown, maybe two this game. Yes. So watch out for that. I think the Lions end up taking care of business here against Carolina. I think the score is probably going to look something like 31-17.
Okay. No, I'd say, neighborhood of 31-24. I always think these games are going to be close. But, boy, you look at the scenario on the other side of things, Steve Wilkes, the coach, has been disrespected in so many circles.
Dude, he's done such a fantastic job there. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's got his team playing well after a crazy, crazy start to the year with all that drama. Still got his team put to, and he talks like Dan Campbell. He's like, I don't want to hear the word playoffs. I had asked Dan Campbell, I said, do you look at the standing? He's like, nope, don't do that at all. Just focus on the next game. So I think it's going to be another close game, but the Lions just have more talent, high-end talent, in regards to everything going on. And you still haven't gotten the full throttle value out of Jamison Williams yet, only playing less than 15 snaps a game. So maybe in a better climate, he gets more reps. Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston is emerging. And now we get to talk about Romeo Quara with 2 sacks. So you look at this football team, everything has been coming up roses. They got at this point in time, memo to the cleaning staff, extra disinfection, extra Clorox. Figure out whatever bug has been plaguing that team. 5-6 players came down with an illness. I'm not trying to be ill. I'm a healthy dude. Can't bring no illnesses to the home. So figure out whatever is going on with those viruses and disinfect the shit out of Allen Park this week so that everybody can go to the Carolina game and have an opportunity to win and play. They're going to win. They're going to win. They're going to destroy the Bears, and it's going to set up the winner-take-all scenario. This has been the most fun to watch a young football team grow. It just makes you think, too, because just 3 games earlier in the year, you could have hosted a playoff game this year. That's why everybody was so mad. You were leading in the first half against Miami, dominating a team that's not the best offensively, and you shit the bed in the second half at home against Seattle, where if you just played any defense, something that looked like defense, you would have win that game. And if Dan Campbell steps up in a situation in Minnesota where he can call upon his experience and not mess up clock management and decision-making and being aggressive just for the sake of being aggressive, because that's 3 wins. That's 3 more wins to the tally. This would be 14 games. It would be a 10-4 team. This team could be 10-4 if things would have shaken out in a much different way. But look, because it's the NFL. I mean, I sat there Saturday. I watched the Vikings come back on the Colts. So even if the Lions are up 33-0, until it hits 0-0-0, it's never over. So that's the mindset that the Lions got to keep going forward, is all gas, no brakes. Don't let any fluky shit happen to ruin your season. It's right there. That's the blessing of what's going on, is everything's right there, set up for them to have success.
As dysfunctional as the Lions have been in their past, have you ever seen a team as dysfunctional as this Colts team is right now? I've watched a lot of Colts football this year, primarily because I've got Michael Pittman on my fantasy football team, and I can't decide what I want to do with him. And he has all the makings in the world to be a very good wide receiver. But he does some of the stupidest stuff I've ever seen. Like, this guy falls away from the football, doesn't run to the football to make the catch. He gets targeted like 15 times a game. He should be like 12 and 15, like 12 receptions on 15 targets every single game with over 100 yards receiving every game. Instead, he's like 6 for 15. It's because he falls away from the ball, doesn't run to the ball, ends up setting Matt Ryan up for interceptions. Matt Ryan looks like he's basically cooked. Like, he's a corpse of what Matt Ryan used to be. You can get into what happened with the coaching staff. That's kind of crazy. I will say this, the offensive line And the defense, I think, has played better under Jeff Saturday than they did under Frank Reich. But still, that offense is just makes you want to throw up. On top of it, the whole thing with how Jeff Saturday got his job is just kind of sketch magetch. I don't know, in all of the dysfunctional times as a Lions fan, I don't know if I can. There has to be a time where they were just as, if not more, dysfunctional than this Colts team. But this Colts team is just absolutely brutal to watch. You take a 33-point lead into half, and you end up just getting smoked in the second half and in overtime, and you give up 39 points in basically 2.5 quarters. I don't know how you do it. It's crazy.
It was very crazy. Well, look, Spartan Dogs never quit. So you never count out a Kirk Cousins. You never count out anybody that has the ability to believe in themselves. Baby, Spartan Dogs. Oh. They got to handle business, baby. That's what we do. And the Vikings, good Lord, man, they just comeback kids. Whatever it is, don't count them out. They were at home, but to not be able to win that game, what is going on there? That's the supreme height of, like, they just went into the locker room and were like, we got this. Like, no. You never have it. That's what's prime, is that now I just feel bad for Matt Ryan. In the Super Bowl and part of the biggest comeback in NFL history, that is just wild on a lot of levels. But that goes to show you the craziness that was the NFL all week. And then, cause we just have to end the podcast on some Schadenfreude shit, laughing at the Patriots, because I ain't never seen stupidity at the level that I've seen, where late in the game, with the potential to have it go to overtime, a running back gives the ball up in a lateral. The next running back decides the best plan is to throw it 20 yards backwards towards the opponent's goal line where they have an opportunity to get it. The Raiders recover it, and then the quarterback is left out to dry, where the defensive player just takes his arm and basically swats away Mac Jones like a gnat, and the Patriots lose. It was crazy because the Patriots and Bill Belichick are known for understanding situational football. Probably, with my eyes, the dumbest NFL play I have ever seen. I don't know, I know it's a player-friendly league. I would probably drop 55 motherfuckers on this guy walking back to the locker room. How the fuck do you decide to throw the football backwards when all you got to do, the play's done, you didn't get to the end zone, it's done. You don't throw the football back 20 yards. And whoever, if that was design, if they're trying to protect Matt Patricia, at the very least, you never throw it back more than 5 yards.
Bro, what
a win for the Raiders.
He looks in over his head when he was here as a head football coach. He looks like he is way in over his head as an offensive coordinator. It's unreal. I know that he's technically the offensive lines coach, but he's the offensive coordinator. Like, Mac Jones looked like he was going to be a very good quarterback in the National Football League. Mac Jones right now looks like he just belongs in a body bag. It is absolutely brutal. Like, I laughed my ass off when I watched that play and I watched how it unfolded. I was like, how do you do that? And like, you're right. The way Mac Jones got swatted to the ground was absolutely funny. But dude, the Patriots, what a mess.
What a mess. Well, what's not a mess? Detroit Sports Podcast going strong. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Everybody that supports this project, thank you so much, cuz. Merry Christmas to you and yours. It's going to be a fun time. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSCROZ. Make sure you continue to like and subscribe. Hit the retweet button. Hit the like button. Shoot us a comment. Anywhere that you find podcasts, make sure that you go and subscribe by hitting Detroit Sports Podcast, and then our content will find you. Man, Thursdays are always fun. We've been going strong now for almost a decade. Every Thursday, dropping you quality audio content, and we thank you. As the world of podcasting has grown, you've seen the Detroit Sports Podcast grow with it. So, often imitated, never duplicated. Detroit Sports Podcast bringing you great audio breakdown and content here in the world of Detroit sports. Thanks, cuz.